Jake the Snake, that's another guy. We made money, man. I was in Ohio. We worked 1 week in Georgia back in, I don't know, 1981, 82. We'd go to Ohio, man. It was sell out. Yeah, Jake was,
Yeah, we actually interviewed him recently too.
he was, I'll tell you what, I wish I would have wrestled in 5 years. I would have retired early.
Your biggest feud with him was in Atlanta, though. Is that right?
Yeah, but it carried over to Ohio too. We started it but see, but the tape went up there.
Okay.
Yeah, we were on the superstation. So everything we did, we followed up in Ohio. That was a perfect deal. We had strap match.
Oh, wow.
Man, we beat each other. I mean, I'm talking about coming out of there. I think I got pictures. Whelp, man. That belt that wrap around him will whap.
So a lot of, like, some people like Bret Hart have said that Jake wasn't that tough. So in your experience wrestling him, he was tough.
Well, I don't know if he was tough but he didn't complain.
Right. He went out there and fought you.
Yeah, I don't know about tough in a fight.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'll tell you what, he never complained, and we beat, literally. I mean, we come out of there with bruises.
Are you happy to hear that he seems to have overcome his addictions for that?
I'm glad if he did. Man. He was his own worst enemy. What a good guy. I mean, he's a good. I wrestled his dad a lot. Jake Grizzly.
Yeah.
I have more people come in the ring wrestling that man than any. I have a lot of people come in the ring, but him, I think every time I wrestle him, I had somebody come in the ring to help him. And the guy's 6'7", close to 6'8", I think.
Yeah.
He was huge.
Do you have any stories about Jake the Snake from that time? Because he's a kind of wacky character.
Yeah, I do. Jake would get so mad at me. Jake was, and I don't know, he's still, back in those days, he was a chain smoker. And of course, I'm like, I couldn't stand cigarette smoke. And, but I'm living with these guys, and he's a chain smoker. And so I'm like, okay, I got to figure something out here. Every time they'd go on their tours to Ohio, go up north, Ohio, Michigan, whatever, I'd throw all of his ashtrays out. I'd get rid of everything. I'd fumigate the apartment, do the whole deal. He'd come home and be looking, he's like looking everywhere for his ashtrays, and they disappeared, And it never became a real point. We never got in any kind of contention over it, but he certainly was never pleased about my doing that.
And just one question about Jake. We've interviewed him, and I like him, but he always says that the incident with the honky-tonk man hitting him with the guitar is what really drove him to taking drugs. Did you notice when you dated him if he took any drugs around that time?
Let me just say that I'll never forget that we would stay up. The first time I ever did cocaine was with Hawk and Jake, and we were getting ready to go to the Spar Shenanigans, and they were doing it, and they gave me some, and I'll never forget, because I was like, which doesn't go good with I'm ADHD, and it doesn't go good with ADHD, but I'll never forget that was the first time I ever did it. And, we were running around the bar, but we would stay up and play cards all night. And I'm young, so I can stay up, and plus I can sleep all day. And he would be up, partying, and we would be playing, 500, or Rummy 500 or whatever, playing that. And we'd stay up all night playing cards. But no, he was partying. And then he also gave me my first halcyon, because I did, we had done coke, and I was like running all around, like all hyped up, crawling the walls or whatever. And I'll never forget, he gave me a halcyon. He said, chew it up and swallow it. And I don't remember anything but waking up the next day at like 6 o'clock, so this was way before the honky tonk man. But I'll never forget, we were up watching TV, and they had world class wrestling on, and this was back, and they had what's her name? Precious against Sunshine on there. And I remember seeing that. And I told Jake, I'm like, Jake, that's what I want to do. I want to do that, Jake. And Jake had came up with an idea. They were going to do something with Bob Roop and have Bob Roop give a big box, and I was going to be in the box, and then Jake was going to, undo the box, and then it's a girl. Bob Roop's giving him a girl, and then instead of him like walking up like he's liking me, but then DDT me, as an angle. And that never got to happen. But he did call World Class for me and tell World Class, I have a girl here that wants to, but they didn't have any spots for me at the time. But Jake did that for me, which was really, really nice.
And I used to drive around a lot with Jake Roberts. I had to pick him up, and we always had to go on these wild rides, with him. It's like Jake is like, you never know where.
Those were his dark days.
Oh, yeah. It's just a mess. But like in between of him being a mess on these trips I'd have to go with him and stuff, I think he'd, it's just give me great knowledge. How to work a character, how to do, just what to do. And go do, try this. I go and try it. He, this stuff, but he was always like, he'll even tell you these stories. He was a crackhead.
Right.
We'd be driving. Hey, pull over this town over here. We'd go down the highway. We'd like 4-hour drive. You just pull into town and go try and find the hood in the town and pull up the street corners, ask people if they got any crack. I'm a green guy in the business driving. I've known him from seeing him on TV and stuff. And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, I'm going to private school. High school. So I'm like a suburban kid from Marietta, Georgia and stuff. And I'm driving around with Jake, and he's trying to, he's like, he was a crackhead back then. He just couldn't. And I would have to go and drive him and stuff. I didn't do it. I have to drive. So it's like, I'm the driver. I'm the green guy driving around Jake, and he's, But in between all that, the guy's brilliant, for wrestling. But it's just he was just a mess, But
do it right in the car.
Yeah, it's funny. He would we get in the car, and I get in the driver's seat, and he'd get in the passenger seat. His car. We drive his car. He didn't want to drive because he wanted and he would always just reach in, pull the can out, and be like, I haven't done this since the last time I drove with you. Every time, and I'm like, oh, yeah, all right, yeah, sure, Jake. I'm sure that's true. He's oh, really? So.
And you're Jake the Snake Roberts' brother that a lot of people don't know. What was it like growing up with him?
Well, actually, we didn't grow up together. There was a few brief times in our childhoods that Jake and Jolene, my sister Jolene, lived with us and stuff. But Jake stayed in Texas with his mom, and then Robin and I were on the road with my dad and everything most of my life. But yeah, it was cool. I always idolized Jake. Jake, my brother's got the best mind that professional wrestling has ever seen, better than any of these Hollywood script writers that they're hiring or anything like that. Jake fed off of emotions, things. He's got the best psychological mind for this business. Everybody says so, but it's a real honor, and I'm proud he's my brother.
And you mentioned Jake was the first guy that opened the door for you. What were your thoughts of Jake?
Oh my gosh. Jake, I learned so much from, because I wasn't traveling with Gino, because Gino kind of had his own thing going, and he'd get to the show and then leave. And, we weren't really partnered up, and I'd have to find my way to the towns myself. Jake was really cool because we both smoked a lot of pot, and it was like we were instant friends, instant buddies, instant we always hung around each other, and I learned so much from him, just from doing road trips of learning how to do promos and learning how to present myself. And just, he was the one that basically smartened me up to the business and made me who I was whenever I went to Crockett, because I was so green going with Dallas, because I only worked 2.5 months with Dallas, and then I went in with Crockett, that I took everything that I learned with Jake and made Baby Doll out of that, and it worked. And the heel sense of it and the look, and just Jake had a way of just walking to the ring, people hated him. And I wanted just to absorb that and copy it. And I tried my best to do that. And I think it worked.
I tried to find video of this, but a fan sent me a question for you. They said that they saw a makeout scene with you and Jake, and it aired on TV, I guess. And they said to this day it was the most realistic makeout scene they'd ever seen in wrestling. Do you have any recollection of this?
Oh my gosh. He would like pull my hair. See, I don't remember that. Like when we were doing the 6-man or when he was tagging with Gino and stuff, he would like pull my hair back and he might have kissed me, but it wasn't the only time that I really like made out with someone was with Magnum TA. With a kiss like right before Starcade. That's the only one that I don't remember like making out with Jake. I really, because he was married. I don't remember that.
Well, there is no evidence on the internet. I tried to find what this fan was talking about, so maybe they imagined
Maybe he was mistaking me with like Magnum. Like maybe he was mistaking a Magnum for Jake.
I lived with, it wasn't with Crockett. It was back with Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Okay.
I lived with Jake Roberts. And boy, was it one of the most interesting 6 months of my life.
He said actually a few times that guitar shop from Honky Tonk Man caused his drug addiction that he developed in later years. Did you ever notice if he partook in anything?
Well, what was the cause of it 10 years before that? I mean, Jake, listen, since the time I knew Jake, Jake was a party guy. When we lived together, he was a party guy. Because he and Hawk would go out partying together. I knew that for a fact. Back in 1983, they were partying together. When Jake and I were living together until Nikita came down and stayed with us. And then Jake went and lived with Hawk because they lied to do the same thing. So, yeah, man, he didn't start drinking and doing all that stuff. It was a honky tonk.
Jake the Snake says he invented the DDT while working a match with you. Can you confirm this story?
We've been doing this back and forth for years. I'll tell my story again. And Jake will say, oh, that fat bastard's lying, all this. But here's what happened. I was working in Mid-South. Bill Watts was like this. I came in under the hood as a grappler, and I was his wrestling heel. Okay, but wrestling, he said, at the top of the marquee says professional wrestling, so we're going to give them wrestling on the card, and that's from you, Lenny. He said, now, the top got, Hayes and Gordy, the Freebirds, Junkyard Dog, and Robley, all them guys. They're the furniture movers. They do all the gigging and all the shit. And, but I need somebody that's going to be a wrestler, so that's your job. So he told me, I don't want you to go less than 30 minutes. No less, regardless of what match you're in. And so, it's hot. We're in Lake Charles, Louisiana. It's hot as shit. And we went about 30 minutes. And we both, what happened is, I was working a thing where Jake, we'd do a high spot and he'd go back to the front face line, get me back down. And then another spot, and I'd get my way out of it, and he'd grab the front face line and back. So he went to grab that front face line, and we both slipped and we fell. And it went boom. I mean, it's an accident. But the crowd popped so loud, I went, damn, did you hear that? Let's try it again. So I called the spot out of it. This time, he really worked it, and boom, and it popped. And so I said, Jake, we did it for, 3 or 4 more nights, different shows until I said, save that for TV. I said, man, you need to use that for a finish. That looks too impressive. And he goes, okay. And then he did, and he named it, started using it, and named it the DDT, and he took it from there. But that's my version, okay? Now, Jake sure is going to say he thought of it all by himself, and that's what he does, but that's what happened. It was a total accident.
Yes, my first big feud came with Jake. Jake had been a bad guy, and Jake was a bad guy. Now I'm the bad guy, and I go out and do Jake the Snake Pit. And Jake's interviewing me, calling me all these greaseball, dressed up like Elvis. Who do you think you are? Well, when Jake first went out to do his Jake the Snake Pit, of course, the people booed him because he had been in matches with Savage and been in matches with Hogan, and he was the bad guy. He had had a few of those before. where he was getting over as a bad guy, but they thought that Jake could serve them better as a good guy, and they wanted to promo me into upper level on the card. So he said, go out, and when Jake starts talking, blah, 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 and he turns his back to reach to pick the snake up, and he turns around, you whack him. And when I hit Jake with a guitar, that place cheered Jake. I mean, they turned on me like rabid animals. And from then on, Jake was a good guy. So we didn't have to do more than a 2-minute interview segment for me to turn Jake.
So Jake actually claims that whole guitar hit, that it was a very heavy guitar, and that actually screwed him up so much that he got hooked on pain fetish instead of drug. Did you ever hear of Jake doing drugs before that? Because, of course, I've read quite a few wrestling books. Road Warrior Animal even says he was quite into drugs back when they were roommates. So this would have been numerous years later. Do you think you really injured Jake? And did that injury have anything to do with this, 30-plus year now drug?
That he claims that I hurt him and he had to have neck surgery. Well, I always say this. The stuff that I knocked out of Jake's ears, was the powder that came out of the guitar was not the kind that Jake was using. Let's put it that way. But here's the point, and the fact of the matter is this. Jake wrestled 2 more years before he had neck surgery. He wrestled 2 years after I hit him with a guitar, before he even complained about neck surgery. Jake was Jake was in and out of rehab several times while we were having our program together after the WrestleMania 3. And Jake had his demons, and he admits that. The thing that bothered me the most was Mick Foley wrote in his book that I permanently injured Jake, caused Jake Roberts to have neck surgery, which probably shortened Jake's career. So I took offense to that. And I called Foley like a man should. I called him up and I said, Mick, why did you write this in your book and say these things? Promoters are going to read this and think I hurt people. And I said, I've never hurt anybody in my life in this business, ever. He said, well, that's what Jake told me. I said, do you mean that's the only person you asked was Jake? I said, why didn't you ask me? I said, you're a journalist now. You're writing books. Yes. I said, a good journalist will go to all his sources. He will ask everyone before he forms an opinion. I said, you never asked me. If you had asked me, I'd have told you. The guitar was so gimmicked that I had to hide it because some of the boys would come along, they'd like to pick it up and play with it. Don't touch it, don't touch it. So I had to go hide this thing. We had cut it, and that was a big, heavy guitar, but we had cut it with a carpet knife and cut X's and cut lines in it. And we took a black permanent marker and blacked it in all the white parts so you couldn't see the white part of the wood. It was so gimmicked that I pushed on it with my thumb and I thought it was going to break. And I told Jimmy Hart, I said, we got to hide this because it's going to get broken. That's the only one we had.
Now, what was Mick Foley's response to the apology?
He told me he was sorry. He says, you're right. I should have asked somebody other than Jake. I said, given Jake's reputation, and Jake had openly admitted all his demons, I said, why would you want to believe Jake? He says, well, I've been around Jake a few times and everything. I trusted his opinion. I said, well, but anyway, it was, we didn't have harsh words or anything by any means.
He talks actually in the same book that Jake, when he was traveling with Jake didn't overcome his demons and
so
was doing all sorts of stuff. Back when he was doing his religious gimmick even. So that feud, I guess the epitome of that feud was WrestleMania 3, and Alice Cooper was involved with that match. What was WrestleMania 3 like for you? Probably the biggest wrestling event of all time. And any memories of Alice Cooper from that night?
We knew that the WrestleMania 3 was going to be big. None of us ever dreamed it was going to be that big. As far as going out there, you couldn't see the people. They looked like they were so far up. They looked like tiny little ants. And if you ever get a chance to show that photo and so the people can see that aerial view from the top of the building down, I showed it to my daughter the other day. She'd never seen it. I said, this is what we had one time. This is the kind of people we drew. And she said, gosh, Dad, you can't even recognize them now. They look like little ants. I said, yes, there was 90-something thousand people. we never dreamed it'd be that big. We never dreamed it would take off like it did after that. WrestleManias had been so-so. WrestleMania 1 had been not a real profit for WWE because they tried a simulcast or something, or maybe that was WrestleMania 2 where they tried to do it from 2 different places, and it wasn't a complete failure, but as far as business wise, it was not good. WrestleMania 3 put Vince McMahon and WWF over the top, and to be in there with Alice Cooper, you know, I'd never met him before. He lives in Phoenix. Aretha Franklin was there and sang and everything, and we were interviewed backstage by that girl Mary Hart that was on that Entertainment Tonight show for so many years. It was a star-studded event, but we had been on the road. I want the fans to remember this and keep in mind, we had been on the road like 50-something days straight. We had the night off. If I remember, we might not even had the night off before WrestleMania 3. I don't even think we did. I think we wrestled somewhere that night and drove into Detroit and went to that show that day. And we didn't know how big the crowd was until first match went out and saw the crowd. But being with Alice Cooper, it was Jake's idea to have Alice Cooper because he thought, well, Alice Cooper handles snakes, and Alice Cooper's, you know, top name in the rock, alternative rock kind of music business, and had a big following at the time and was from Detroit. So that enhanced the crowd a little bit. But we get out there, and before we went out, Jake showed Cooper the size of the snake, and this was a big snake. And Cooper was like, I don't know if I can do this. I only handle like those little bitty ones, you know. I don't mess with those big ones. Jake told, it'll be okay, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Cooper was like really nervous. And every time I would get on Jake, I'd get Jake over near Alice Cooper, and I'd hammer on him and say, you're going to be next, Alice. What kind of name do you have, Alice, anyway? He almost got ready to climb into the ring and jump on me because I had gotten him so worked up with beating on Jake. Come on, Cooper, you're next when I'm finished with him. Bing, bing, bing. And then when he did get in the ring and he had this big snake, he could hardly hold it. And he had to put it on Jimmy Hart, and Jimmy was struggling and would. Jake almost had to break Jimmy's neck to hold him.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.